Hey guys, Kingpin here. Welcome to the next episode of Franchise Mode. We've got a lot to do today, and it all involves this empty space that's right in between the two builds that we have so far. If you remember from our last zoo, we made a capybara exhibit, but they quickly took over the entire zoo with their needs because there's so many of them. We didn't put contraceptives on them in time. So, I chose two really good candidates that we're going to be bringing to this zoo, and we're going to make them an exhibit right here. I've gotten a lot better at the game since episode 3 of the series when we last encountered capybaras. Normally I'm not the biggest fan of backtracking content that we've already made, but capybaras seem to be an exception to me. They're probably the most fan-favorite animal in this entire game, and the fact that they weren't included in the base game is shocking to me. So, I think that they, as opposed to any other animal that we've already made an exhibit for, definitely deserves a little sequel episode. They're really popular, and I think you guys would appreciate it too, because that video did really well. Capybara really like wetlands and anything that involves water. This is why they're primarily found in the middle and the east coast of South America, because this is where the Amazon River runs. The left side of South America, the west coast, is more of a mountainous region. You have Peru right here, and Chile right here, all of which are extremely mountainous regions. So capybaras aren't going to like it over there as much. They have to have water to survive. They spend 50% of their time in it. They much prefer to be in the lush area of the Amazon rainforest, which is what we're going to model their exhibit after. Seeing as that I want this exhibit to model the Amazon, the key feature of it is going to be the giant river that's going to run straight through the middle of it. At the end of the river on one side over here, we're going to have a hot spring for them, which one of their enrichment items actually ties directly into. On the other side of the exhibit, kind of where it's a square over on the other end, there's going to be a hard shelter for them so they can take shelter from the guest if they get too stressed. Their fence is going to be extremely short in this exhibit, and the guests are going to have views of them pretty much throughout the entire thing, except in their hard shelter. So aside from that, the only other area the cappies are going to be able to hide is if they take cover in the river, which they very well might do. Capybaras really enjoy being in water. The hardest part of this exhibit is by far going to be their hard shelter. We should probably work on that first, because the size of that's going to depend what we can do with the exhibit plant-wise. We're not going to have a giant tree, or any huge plants taking over the exhibit if the shelter takes up half of it. I'm thinking we're going to make it pretty similar to our ice cream parlor that we made a few episodes back. It's going to have a wood foundation and a thatch roof. We'll detail it up later with a trim and probably some enrichment items too. Since capybaras are in our other zoo, they're fully researched already, so we can make their exhibit 100% how we want it from the start, without having to add other things later like we did with most of the other animals in this zoo. While editing the last episode, we actually hit 500 subscribers. I couldn't believe it. I've got something planned for a special, but it's not going to be in this video, so stick around. But for now, let's get this shelter built. It lined up perfectly, and this thing can certainly fit a lot of capybaras inside. We're just going to have to make it a little taller to accommodate the second floor. I decided to call it Capybara Cabin. I thought it was cute. Plus we need to label more things in our zoos. It's one thing we need to get better at. I'll detail the rest of this up later, but I made it all in the same group, so if you guys want I can put it on the workshop. Since we already made an exhibit for capybaras in our previous zoo, we can start to prepare the exhibit for them before they even arrive, since we have a rough idea of what they want. For starters, we can get rid of this little log trim that we have outside the rainforest. We're going to have a new fence for this exhibit, and it's going to be a pretty basic one, easy to replicate. Capybara's main food source is simply just grass. They're going to need a little bit of long grass and a whole lot of short grass, not so much soil and rock, so we can pre-build their exhibit now knowing this. One thing that I personally like to do with my exhibits when I'm detailing them is add heavy and light soil, kind of in paths that the animals would heavily travel. For example, we can have a path going from their little shelter down to the water's edge. In my opinion, it just makes the area look a little bit more traveled in that capybaras realistically would take this route all the time since they're semi-aquatic. For now, we'll make the inside of their little hut more soil, just in case they want to get away from the grass. You don't always want to live in your refrigerator. Overall, I would say capybaras are an extremely easy animal to take care of. They don't require a whole lot of effort unless you let the population get out of control, but that's also pretty easy to mediate. Their needs aren't outrageous at all, they don't get sick very often, and they don't require a pretty complex fence in order to keep them in. All it has to be is taller than 4.5 feet, which that's nothing. So far all I've done for the fence on this enclosure is use the null barrier, and we're going to come in with a pretty small version of the wooden area we've used for the Cappy cabin, but just use this as the simple fence. It's really easy. Alright, that wasn't so bad. We added the very simple fence, and I think it's time to actually go get the capybaras. Let's just make sure the exhibit is ready and operational, and it looks like it is. Our animal trade center is all the way in the back of the rainforest, so it does take a little bit of time for the keepers to get the animals here, but we'll get them now. I'm pretty sure that we have 2 gold star ones. Yes, we do. Luis and Mercedes. They're right from our other zoo. Hopefully they enjoy their new home. This one won't have 100 babies running around inside of it either. So far, I really like the aesthetic of this exhibit. It's really cool because you can see it as soon as you get out of the rainforest and before you take your hike on the other path of the zoo that we've yet to build. It's gonna go probably up and have some elevation to it. I'm just imagining it in my head so far. Okay, they're finally here. That took a really long time. I guess there is no easy path to get here, but welcome to your new home. Now let's just stop you from moving for the next 5 minutes to make sure it's safe. And it looks like... Okay, so this symbol is a little bit different. It doesn't necessarily mean they can escape, it just means they can get outside of the null barrier. And the way the null barrier works is even if it's inside a fence and they can get outside of it, it counts as an escape. So we do have to get rid of that and make sure that they can't escape the null barrier. In order to do that, all we have to do is just change the null barrier. It's really easy. So we'll just delete it right here and connect it up with the other side after we get it where it needs to go. So we'll just make it go a little past and probably have it cutting through the bleachers just like this. Really easy to fix, and I don't think they could get out over here. This is fine. This should work. Now we just have to go in here. Yeah, this was the big problem. See, they could get out of there even though it was only a couple feet past. So we'll just extend it way out here and connect it back up to the other side. The only con with doing this is that it throws off your dimensions of the exhibit. Say your animal needs a certain amount of space and you're cutting it really close. If the null barrier is a few feet outside of where the animals can actually traverse, they're not going to have enough space, so that can be pretty tricky. So try to keep the null barriers as close to the barrier as you possibly can. That being said, hopefully now they can't escape anywhere. Not that they could before, but they can't get outside the null barrier, and it looks like we were successful. Capybara are the largest rodents in the world and can reach weights of up to 150 pounds and lengths of up to 4 feet long. Despite their size, they're mostly known for their gentle and docile nature. Capybaras are also excellent swimmers and spend a significant amount of their time in the water, about 50% in fact. Their webbed feet and streamlined bodies make them well adapted for swimming, and they can even stay submerged for several minutes at a time. Cappies are also highly social animals and live in groups called herds. These herds can consist of a few as like 10 or 15 of them, but also as many as 100. Living in groups helps capybaras protect themselves from predators. You're not going to want to fight a group of 100 capybaras, but you could easily take one. Capybaras, being highly social animals, also have an interesting communication technique. They can talk to each other through a variety of vocalizations, including barks, whistles, purrs, and chirps. They also use scent marking to establish their territory and communicate with other members of their herd. All capybaras are completely herbivorous, which means they completely only eat plants. Carnivores eat meat only, herbivores eat plants only, and omnivores can eat both. Female capybaras give birth to litters of usually 4 to 5 pups in the wild, although litters of up to 8 pups have been recorded. That's a lot of babies. Capybaras play an extremely important role in their ecosystems as grazers and seed dispensers. By consuming vegetation and dispersing seeds through their feces, they help maintain the health and diversity of the plants which live there. That pretty much means they eat plants, poop out the seeds, and can grow plants where the poop is. Capybaras are extremely unique animals. Despite not currently being considered endangered, not even vulnerable in fact, they have a wide territory in South America. They do face threats from habitat loss, hunting, and competition with domestic livestock from people. Conservation efforts are underway to protect the capybaras and their habitats, which are the wetlands. Capybaras have an interesting take in South American folklore too. In South American folklore, capybaras are usually depicted as mythical creatures, revered for their resilience and adaptability. This mirrors how they act in real life, when they really treat every animal with a kind of sense of respect and they're just peaceful in general. In legends, they usually appear as symbols of abundance, harmony, and nature. Capybaras are actually the second most popular zoo attraction on the planet, just behind elephants. Many zoos feature capybara exhibits where visitors can observe their unique behaviors up close and learn all about their natural history and conservation status. I was at the Columbus Zoo this past week, and one of the capybaras was able to come out of its exhibit and walk around. It was really cool. I'll put a picture on screen. I mentioned it a few videos back, but I want to have education be a much more important component to this channel, and base it more on biology, and not just gameplay. That's not saying gameplay is going anywhere. I really like this game, and I love it with all my heart, despite it only being out for a couple months. I just want to be able to bring awareness to some really cool animals that happen to be in this game. Capybaras are a great start. Sorry this video took a little bit longer than normal to come out. I'm trying to learn a few new edits and trying to make the education segments better while I'm at it. This was the first real new one, but let's see how our capybaras are doing now that they've gotten acquainted to their exhibit. We can already give them grade 3 feed too, since we have them in our previous zoo. I'm thinking that we're going to need to get another one though. I forgot that they like to have really large social groups, so let's look for another cappy while we're here. No, we don't need an alligator, we don't need a bison, we don't need a fox, although I really do want to make an Arctic fox exhibit eventually. That'll be in the next zoo when the penguins come out. We don't need a camel, we might add a tapir in here, but just one since they have cohabitation. We already have lemurs, that albino wildebeest is pretty cool. We don't need another orangutan, we don't need a sea lion. Now let's look for a capybara that's a gold star. This one's really good, has high appeal, and it's pretty cheap, has very good stats. Do we want another male, though? We have albinos in our other zoo, so they're not quite as special now. We can always bring them over. Albino cappies are a dime a dozen, too, but this guy's really cheap. Also a male, but we'll send him to the zoo right away. Now we'll have 3 capybaras. Another clutch aspect to having capybaras in this zoo right now is that we can catch up on our research since we have so many exhibit animals inside the rainforest that need to get maxed out. We don't have to waste any time researching capybaras since we already have them in the franchise. I keep thinking that statue up there is an albino and it's escaped, but it hasn't. These guys really seem to enjoy their exhibit so far, although they're not going over by their hot spring and I don't really know why. Maybe I made it a little too close to the rocks and they can't quite reach it. I designed this exhibit to be as close to their home in the Amazon as possible, but a little less jungly, if that makes sense. A little less rainforest, a little more wetland, which is actually what these guys prefer. When I think of the Amazon, I just think of a big river with trees everywhere that you wouldn't even be able to walk through if you tried, but that's not what capybaras are all about. They enjoy the more open areas so they can graze, and as you can see, they can graze everywhere in this exhibit. There's plants all over the place, and the only place there's not plants, there's rocks. But it looks like that these guys couldn't access the V's, so that's why we're going to have to take them out of the rocks and push them a little closer so they can actually use them. I've never seen the capybaras use these things before, but this was a DLC item added specifically for them, so it must be cute. I guess if the enrichment items are black, they can't access them. I'm not 100% positive, but I'm 99% sure that these items right here actually have a real-life story tied to them. There was a zoo somewhere in Japan, and they had a hot spring exhibit that wasn't necessarily for capybaras, but they were cleaning their exhibit or quarantining them, but for some reason the capybaras ended up going in there, and it turns out they really enjoyed the hot springs. Nobody knew this because the Amazon doesn't have hot springs, it's just a rainforest. So when the capybaras really took notice to the hot springs, that's kind of when capybaras became culturally relevant, and everyone started liking them. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a meme, because memes are meant to be laughed at and everybody just adores capybaras, but that's really when their popularity took off. It's an interesting story. These guys really like their water. They've been in here a lot so far. This river wasn't necessarily big enough to have the Amazon water lilies, but I think it turned out nice. Probably save just in case, but let's check what the complexity meter's at. Just 20%, and we have 3 highly detailed exhibits, and the rainforest alone has like 15. So I'd say this zoo is doing very good. This wasn't necessarily meant to be the biggest zoo ever built, I just want it to be highly detailed. I think my favorite part of it's their little door they have with their little flaps of palm fronds, but we should probably add in some regular feeders for these guys, just in case they get sick of other enrichment items. I wouldn't want to eat watermelon 24/7, and it gives the keepers something to do when they come in here. Check him out. He just came in now, maybe he's going to stock it. Or not. He's just going to observe them and do some research. I really want to see the Cappies walk across their bridge, too. That would be so cute. The traversable area says they can get in and out, and they can even go under it. And they can't get out of this exhibit, too, despite the fence being pretty short. Short enough for a kid to look over it. Is he going to go under? Well, the keeper's gone. Cute. We'll detail up the inside of that in between episodes, too. I'm honestly not sure what to do with it. They still haven't gone over here. They definitely can at this point, but they just chosen not to. I'm wondering if we should add any new plants. Maybe some rocks or anything to make the ground a little bit more in line with how it was before it got changed when we added these. That's probably going to be the end of the episode as soon as I finish this, though. I really hope you guys enjoyed the longer segments of education, because I really liked making it. It's more fun to be able to inform you guys more about the animals that we share the Earth with. Unless we add a tapir exhibit, which is looking semi-likely but no time soon, this is going to be the last repeat animal in this zoo from our other zoo in North America. But what animals do you guys want to see next? Let me know in the comments. With that being said, I'll see you there. Kingpin out. See you in the next video coming real soon.